You want us to stop? Sorry, we've only just begun warming up. The silence in the council chamber was shattered by the brash declaration from Captain John Bulldog Mason, the appointed representative of Earth. Across the vast, oval-shaped room filled with representatives of countless alien species, a wave of stunned murmurs rippled through the assembly. The request for ceasefire had come from the Galactic Council itself, the highest governing body in the known universe. They had not expected such a response. High Chancellor Zor of the Quasar Dominion, a being of luminescent energy and the current head of the council, flared brighter in irritation. His voice, transmitted through a universal translator, echoed with a resonant timbre that commanded attention. Captain Mason, we implore you to reconsider. The conflict has already reached unprecedented levels of destruction. We summoned this meeting to negotiate peace. Captain Mason leaned back in his chair, a rugged smirk playing on his lips. His casual demeanor was a stark contrast to the meticulous decorum of the council. Destruction? You've seen nothing yet. Earth only just united under one banner. This is the first time we've had a common enemy. And I've got to say, it's been quite the bonding experience. From the side, the Martian ambassador, a bipedal insectoid with a coarse exoskeleton, clicked his mandibles anxiously. Humans, this war has cost trillions of lives. Entire systems are in ruin. Surely, there must be a better way to channel your vigor. Mason's eyes narrowed, the smirk never leaving his face. Look, Ambassador, I appreciate the concern, but you don't get it. For centuries, humanity fought amongst themselves. We were tearing each other apart over land, resources, beliefs. When you guys showed up, it was like a godsend. Suddenly, we had a common goal, a reason to push beyond our limits. And let me tell you, there's nothing more dangerous than a species with something to prove. The council members shifted uneasily. The representative from the Verdant Collective, a gaseous life form contained within a floating sphere, pulsated with fluctuating colors. Captain Mason, we understand the historical context. However, the continuation of this conflict poses a threat to the stability of the entire galaxy. We must find a resolution. Mason chuckled, a sound that resonated with a mix of amusement and menace. Resolution? The only resolution we see is total victory. Our scientists are working around the clock, our factories are churning out war machines, and our soldiers are itching for battle. You want peace? Convince the Caxian Empire to surrender. A murmur of agreement and discontent spread through the council. The Caxians, a reptilian race with a penchant for conquest, had been the primary antagonists in the current galactic war. Their expansionist policies had led to the initial skirmishes that eventually embroiled the entire galaxy. High Chancellor Zor's luminescence dimmed slightly, a sign of contemplation. Captain Mason, the Korean delegation has expressed a willingness to negotiate. They recognize the tenacity and resilience of your species. Perhaps we can mediate a dialogue between your two races. Mason's grin faded, replaced by a steely resolve. Dialogue? The Caxians bombed our colonies, slaughtered our civilians, and pushed us to the brink. We don't want dialogue. We want justice. They started this war, and we're going to finish it. Suddenly, the chamber's lights dimmed, and a holographic projection materialized in the center. It was Emperor Zorx of the Caxian Empire, his scales glistening under the artificial light, eyes narrow and calculating. Human representative, he hissed, we meet at last. Mason's expression hardened. Emperor Zorx, here to beg for mercy? Zor's nostrils flared, and he emitted a low growl. Mercy? We Caxians do not beg. We have fought for millennia, long before your kind crawled out of your primordial seas. But we recognize a formidable opponent when we see one. We propose an armistice. The room fell silent. All eyes were on Mason, waiting for his response. He stood up, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the chamber. Armistice? You mean a temporary pause so you can regroup and hit us again? Not happening. You either surrender unconditionally, or we continue until one of us is wiped out. Emperor Zorx's eyes blazed with anger. Do not underestimate us, humans. We have resources and allies you cannot fathom. A continued war will only bring mutual destruction. Mason leaned in, his voice cold and unyielding. We've been underestimating ourselves for too long. This war has shown us what we're capable of. So, if mutual destruction is what it takes, then so be it. But make no mistake, we will not stop until we've achieved total victory. The council chamber erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as representatives argued, pleaded, and debated. High Chancellor Zor's voice boomed over the cacophony. "Order! We must maintain order!" Captain Mason remained standing, his gaze locked on Emperor Zork's. "Your move, Emperor. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Zor's image flickered, his expression inscrutable. "Very well, human. If it is war you seek, war you shall have. But know this, the Kevoian Empire will not fall easily." With that, the hologram vanished, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. High Chancellor Zor turned to Mason, his glow dimmed to a somber hue. "Captain Mason, you must understand the gravity of the situation. The galaxy cannot endure endless war." Mason nodded, his expression resolute. "I understand perfectly, Chancellor. But humanity has finally found its purpose, and we're not about to let go of it." As the council adjourned, the representatives filed out, leaving Mason standing alone in the vast chamber. He took a deep breath, the weight of the galaxy's expectations pressing down on him. But he felt no fear, no doubt, only the burning determination of a species that had found its calling in the crucible of war. The battle for the galaxy had only just begun, and humanity was ready to fight until the bitter end. In the days following the heated council meeting, Captain Mason turned to the command ship of the human expeditionary fleet. The USS Resolute docked at the edge of a massive asteroid field in a strategic position. The Resolute served as the nerve center for humanity's war efforts. Mason's return was met with salutes and brisk reports from his officers, but his mind was already focused on the next steps. The war room aboard the Resolute was a hive of activity. Holographic displays projected the current state of the galaxy, highlighting conflict zones, fleet movements, and intelligence reports. Mason stood at the center, flanked by his key officers, Admiral Thomas Wright, a seasoned tactician, and General Marcus Hayes, commander of the ground forces. Admiral Wright, with his grizzled features and piercing eyes, tapped a control panel, zooming in on the Korean home system. "Captain, we've identified a weakness in their defenses. Their main shipyards in the Eva Nebula are heavily fortified, but their supply lines are vulnerable. If we can disrupt their logistics, we can cripple their ability to build and repair their fleet." General Hayes nodded, his muscular frame seeming to embody the relentless strength of humanity's ground forces. "Our troops are ready for a coordinated strike. We've trained for this. Hit them hard, and they won't know what hit them." Mason studied the holographic display, his mind racing through the possibilities. "We need to be swift and decisive. If we can cut off their supply lines, we'll force them into a defensive stance. But we also need to be prepared for their retaliation. They won't take this lying down." Admiral Wright pointed to a section of the hologram. "Our intelligence suggests that the Caxian fleet is massing near the Drasen Belt. We could be looking at a significant engagement there. If we strike their supply lines, they might pull back to defend them, giving us an opening." Mason's eyes gleamed with determination. "All right, we launch Operation Severance. Admiral, you coordinate the fleet movements. General, prepare your men for deployment. We strike at dawn." As the officers dispersed to carry out their orders, Mason took a moment to gaze out of the viewport at the vast expanse of space. Humanity had come a long way from its humble beginnings. Now they were on the brink of reshaping the galaxy. There was no turning back. Hours later, the fleet was assembled and ready. The Resolute led a formation of battleships, cruisers, and support vessels, all poised for the attack. Mason stood on the bridge, his presence a steady anchor for his crew. The tension was palpable, but so was the resolve. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Connor, the communications officer. "We're green across the board." Mason nodded. "Good. Set course for the Eva Nebula. Engage on my mark." The fleet surged forward, engines blazing as they streaked toward their target. The journey was tense but uneventful, a calm before the storm. As they approached the nebula, the ships went to battle stations, weapons primed and shields at full strength. "Admiral Wright, take us into the nebula. Keep the formation tight. We don't want to get separated in there," Mason ordered. The fleet plunged into the swirling clouds of the Eva Nebula, their sensors struggling to pierce the dense gas and electromagnetic interference. But the element of surprise was on their side. As they neared the Caxian shipyards, the enemy's defensive fleet came into view, caught off guard by the sudden assault. "All ships, open fire," Mason commanded. The void erupted with the fury of battle. Laser beams, plasma bolts, and missile trails crisscrossed the space between the two fleets. The human ships, with their advanced targeting systems and robust shields, pressed the attack relentlessly. Caxian ships exploded in brilliant bursts of light, their defensive formations breaking under the onslaught. Amidst the chaos, General Hayes led a precision strike on the ground. Dropships descended onto the enemy facilities, deploying squads of heavily armed soldiers. The fighting was fierce, but the human troops, fueled by a mixture of adrenaline and determination, pushed through with ruthless efficiency. Mason watched the tactical display, coordinating the fleet's maneuvers and directing reinforcements where needed. "Admiral, focus fire on their command ships. We need to disrupt their coordination." The Caxian flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons, became the primary target. Human ships concentrated their fire, battering the flagship's shields until they collapsed. A final barrage from the Resolute's main cannons reduced the dreadnought to a flaming wreck. "Captain, we've secured the shipyards," General Hayes reported over the comms. "Their defenses are in shambles. We're mopping up the last pockets of resistance now." Mason allowed himself a rare smile of satisfaction. "Excellent work, General. Begin dismantling their facilities. We don't want them rebuilding anytime soon." As the human forces consolidated their victory, Mason knew this was only the beginning. The Caxians would regroup and retaliate, but humanity had proven they could strike deep into enemy territory. The message was clear. Earth was a force to be reckoned with. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," Lieutenant Connor announced. "Patch it through," Mason replied, his expression hardening as he prepared for another round of diplomatic sparring. The holographic image of High Chancellor Zor materialized, his luminescent form flickering with agitation. "Captain Mason, we have received reports of your actions in the Eva Nebula. The Council demands an explanation." Mason met the Chancellor's gaze unflinchingly. "With all due respect, Chancellor, we're not looking for approval. We're looking for victory. The Caxians wanted a war, and we're giving them one. If they want peace, they know where to find us." Zor's glow intensified, reflecting his inner turmoil. "This war threatens the entire galaxy, Captain. We must find a way to end it." Mason's voice was cold and resolute. "We will end it, Chancellor, on our terms." As the transmission ended, Mason turned back to the viewport, the fires of determination burning bright in his eyes. The road ahead was long and fraught with peril, but humanity had found its path, and there was no turning back now. The weeks following the daring assault on the Eva Nebula were marked by relentless skirmishes and strategic maneuvers. The human expeditionary fleet, now emboldened by their victory, continued to press the Caxian Empire on multiple fronts. However, the war was far from over, and the Caxians were regrouping for a counteroffensive. Captain Mason stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, overseeing the latest reports. The human forces had made significant gains, but the cost was high. Every victory brought them closer to a final confrontation that would decide the fate of the galaxy. "Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Wright," Lieutenant Connor announced. "Put him through," Mason replied. The holographic image of Admiral Wright appeared, his expression grave. "Captain, our scouts have confirmed a massive Caxian fleet amassing near the Drasen Belt. They're preparing for a decisive strike." Mason's jaw tightened. "How many ships are we talking about?" "At least 3 times our number. They're throwing everything they've got at us," Wright replied. Mason nodded, his mind racing through the possibilities. "We can't afford to engage them head-on. We need to outthink them, use their numbers against them." General Hayes, standing nearby, spoke up. "Captain, we've identified several key choke points in the Drasen Belt. If we can lure their fleet into those areas, we can use the asteroid field." Explosions lit up the darkness as ships from both sides were torn apart by the ferocious fighting. "All units, fall back to the primary choke point," Mason ordered. "Admiral, have your cruisers ready to flank them once they're in position." The Caxians, driven by their superior numbers and desire for revenge, pushed deeper into the asteroid field. As they converged on the human fleet's apparent position, the trap was sprung. Human ships emerged from hiding, attacking from multiple angles and creating confusion in the Caxian ranks. "Now," Mason commanded. Admiral Wright's cruisers swooped in, cutting off the Caxians' retreat and raining fire upon their disorganized formations. Meanwhile, General Hayes led a daring boarding action against the Caxian flagship, capturing its command crew and dealing a critical blow out to the enemy's morale. As the battle raged on, Mason coordinated every move with precision, his determination unwavering. The Caxian fleet, unable to regroup or retreat, was decimated. By the end of the engagement, the human forces had achieved a stunning victory against overwhelming odds. The aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Caxian Empire, now reeling from their losses, began to reconsider their stance. The Galactic Council, recognizing humanity's tenacity and growing influence, called for another summit. This time, it was the Caxians who sought peace. Captain Mason stood at the center of the negotiations, his presence a testament to humanity's resilience and determination. The terms were clear. The Caxians would withdraw from all occupied territories, disarm their military fleets, and submit to oversight by the Galactic Council. As the treaty was signed, Mason reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. The war had tested them in ways they had never imagined, but it had also united them and revealed their true potential. Back aboard the Resolute, Mason stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with endless possibilities and challenges. But for now, humanity had secured its place among the stars, and Mason knew they were ready for whatever came next. The war was over, but the story of humanity's rise had only just begun.